Do I leave my cable here?
Ooh, yes and yes and yes again. Welcome to another installment of The Calling with none other than myself. Neo, I'm so happy today. I've been excited about this show because, among other things, it's the first time that I've actually got somebody managed to pin them down halfway around the world, and they've been so professional, they have been so punctual, and they have been so, each and every single word of everything that they said they're going to do, they've done up to so far. They even went as far as making sure that they go through all the instructions that I gave them over the weekend to make sure that we have a seamless show without interruptions. And I'm talking about none other than Simone du Preez, right? And ladies and gentlemen, viewers, those of you who've just joined us, thank you once again. Simone, you want to say a word or two? Just introduce yourself and say hi to our viewers.
Yes. Hi, Neo. Thank you so much, and hi to the viewers as well. It's so great to be here finally, and I'm really looking forward to a really fun and energized discussion.
Fantastic. And you know what? Without wasting much time, because remember, I learned the first time around that you can blabber on, and by the time you take note again, a whole hour is gone. So I just want to jump into the mix of things. And I highlighted today's show as, conscious eating, right? But that's not where we're going to start, because Simone's journey is so interesting, right? The fact that she has a metaphysics, degree, and she is a Reiki Master, and then also Ayurveda,
Yoga
practitioner, yoga teacher as well. I mean, and also she's an author. So, it's quite, I don't know where you find the time to do all of this. But Simone, can you just give us a brief background about your journey? I mean, you're a native of South Africa, Pietermaritzburg, but since 2014, you've been in South Korea. So, I'd like to start about your journey. But when we were discussing before, you said you're going to come on, and I was looking at your profile. I mean, your lack of fear, I am impressed by your bravery to include in your bio or your brief profile that you are somebody that has walked this lifelong journey, and part of that journey was you struggling with suicidal depression, if I'm not mistaken. And I read your accolades again. There you go. But this person managed to go through school, managed to get a degree in metaphysics. She is a yoga, teacher. She's also in Ayurveda, as well as a Reiki Master. To be able to still be constructive and still be growing under the circumstances of your journey, for me, is my biggest highlight. So, can you take us from the start? What does your journey look like in Pietermaritzburg, and how did you end up, of all countries, choosing South Korea when most of us want to go to the popular countries like the US, UK?
Yes. So I had a really good childhood. It wasn't anything awful. Yes, I had a wonderful childhood.
Contrary to popular belief.
Yes, I played in the river down the street from my house. We caught crabs, we climbed trees, we did all the usual things that kids do. So I had a really good childhood. Things started getting a little tricky when I entered university. And I guess as life does, we have little curveballs and traumas that slow us down a little bit sometimes. But what I learned was that they're actually, besides slowing us down, they're really giving us the tools to take life by the horns and to make something amazing of it. So I did not suffer from depression my whole life. It wasn't like that. It was for a period.
Yeah, but that whole brief period can feel like a lifetime.
It really did. And because it was suicidal, it felt like the lifetime was going to end really soon. Every day was a struggle. So I went through a spiritual awakening from that suicidal depression. But what happened was the depression really stripped everything away. And that was the beauty of it. Is, of course, you don't see it that way when you are struggling, but on the other side of it, I could really kind of appreciate the experience and really love the experience even. Because of how it just kind of, stripped away everything that I was not in order for me to kind of figure out or for the opening to happen for me to see who I am. Hence the beginning of the spiritual awakening. And so I had one amazing experience over a period of about 8 months. I was living on a cloud, joyous, happy, connected to the trees. It was so wonderful. I didn't even feel human for most of those 8 months. What happened to the suicidal depression? I mean, there was just so much love. There was just so much love for everything and everyone. It didn't matter whether you were considered the worst person on the planet. There was just so much love for everything.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine being so far away from home. What kind of support did somebody like you going through something like that need, or what did you feel, you could have had to help you, go through that one little episode? We say little because now that you look back, it's brief, but when you were going through it, it was that huge. But what did you yearn for the most that you feel could have made it easier for you to go through your process? Because, I like to look at that period, or as you put it, it stripped everything away. So maybe the authentic you was coming through,
Oh, yeah.
So, how do you think it could have even been better? What kind of support, being so many miles away? There are so many people around, from our country or different countries who take on the world and they go out to the world by themselves.
Yes. So to answer your earlier question before I answer this one, I always wanted to leave home, to go somewhere, to travel, to see something and do something different than what was happening around me. And a cousin of mine came to South Korea, and I figured that that was the first time I was introduced to the program that they run here as an English teacher. And that seemed like a really safe and easy way for me to step outside of the nest for the first time, so far away from home. So that was a really supportive kind of transition. So going to your question about dealing with depression so far away from home, every day I wanted to go home. Every day was me speaking to my mom about sending in my resignation and booking a flight and coming home. Every day was so difficult. But my mom was, she was so amazing during that period. I had 2 wonderful friends in Korea that were really supportive as well. Of course, during struggle, usually most people fall away, which is what happened.
Yeah, definitely.
But I had these 2 amazing women that stood by me and really took care of me. They called in every day. Somebody came to check every day. They made sure that I was taking care of myself. And it was I have so much love for them for being brave enough to stick by somebody that, could be such a huge responsibility. You don't know what's going to happen the next day, So
I can only imagine.
Yeah. So my mom was like, don't come home.
Wow.
I was surprised. Because
Really?
if you come home, you're going to be bored and it's going to just make things so much worse. At least with you having work, you're active, you get to distract yourself, you get to kind of you're forced to do things to get out of bed every day, to feed yourself and so she came here for a month instead, and it wasn't an easy month because of course it was really hard for her to see me like that, and it triggered a lot in her and in myself. Yes.
No, but so there was some kind of support, and I guess maybe
Yeah.
from hind wisdom, at the time when a parent says to a child, "Listen, don't come home," one is very quick to jump to like, "Oh my God, am I being rejected as well?" You know,
Yes. Yeah.
now would you consider this, something that culminated in your awakening from a spiritual perspective?
Most certainly. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Dark Night of the Soul. Have
Wow,
you?
no,
Okay,
no,
so
I'm not.
in some spiritual circles, they speak about the Dark Night of the Soul. Eckhart Tolle is one of them that speaks about it because this is what he went through as well.
Yeah.
And what happens is that all your trauma is brought to the surface for you to kind of deal with very quickly. And so in dealing with the trauma and in allowing all of it to be seen and to be recognized and to be heard, because we don't see ourselves, we don't acknowledge the things that we've been through. And so what happened was going through the learning, I eventually kind of figured out that this was what had happened to me. I didn't understand it at the time. Was that all my trauma from the last 15 years resurfaced at the same time. And there were some really dark things that happened during my university days. I won't get into them.
No, sure, we don't have to.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll find that in your book.
Yes, there is one chapter dedicated to it. The rest of it is about magic and wonderfulness and healing and the journey towards the self, right?
It's what I find very interesting, all right? I mean, before normally I have a guest, I'll try and see, if they are about what they talk about, and one of the best ways for somebody like me to have a look out, find that kind of research is I'll go on your socials, because I mean, if this is something that you do and it's part of your daily lives, we want to express it in every space in which we hold, we feel we hold some kind of a platform to speak or to say something to an audience or to the masses, or letting people what they're all about, telling people what you are all about and your interests and so forth. And what I found interesting, because now that you speak about what you've just spoken about, and maybe somebody else would not have given it a second thought, but this morning when I went through your Instagram, I saw a message there, it's so beautiful, conscious living, where you say, when I practice religion, I learn the path to meet God. But when I practice meditation, I just meet God.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd just like to throw that out there, but let's not get into it right now. What I'd like for us to now break down or start breaking down is your discipline as a graduate in metaphysics. Some of our audiences, yes, we've had this term being thrown around. Sometimes it's used interchangeably with the concept of philosophy, and I'd like to know, is this something that you were introduced to during your dark time that you speak of, where you say, I need something, I've got a yearning and I need answers? How did you get into pursuing metaphysics as such? And was it everything, or was it anything close to what you had expected it to be? And how has that understanding of the metaphysics transformed your life?
So it did not start as a yearning during the depression. During the depression, I wanted nothing to do with healing. I wanted nothing to do with responsibility or acknowledgement of the trauma. It was just a big pile of difficulty. There was no room for any light. It didn't feel like there was room for any light. Yeah. So it was really the awakening experiences that triggered the curiosity. I wanted to understand what was happening to me. right? It's just anybody who's been through any kind of awakening experience, even if it's a gradual shift, when you look back, you're like, whoa, what happened to the person that I was a year ago? Where did she go?
Yes.
And when it happens really quickly, it's like you just, for a time, I didn't look for answers. I
Okay.
just basked in the glory and the magnificence of what I was being shown and what I was experiencing. And I
Yeah.
just allowed it to be without trying to label it or put any kind of definitions on top
Yeah.
of the experiences. But as time went on, the experiences grew. It went from love pouring out of me, universal love, and then light. And I didn't understand what all of this was. But when you start to kind of look into spiritual circles, love and light are the biggest things. And
Yeah.
I had come to acknowledge myself as love and light. If somebody would ask me, who are you? Like in my mind, it was, I am love and I am light, because that was how I experienced myself. And then later I saw that, oh, okay, this is actually a thing. Right. So that led to more experiences, and eventually the experience of oneness, where it was just the most magnificent time. I looked at the lamp beside my bed as this realization came over me, and I was waiting for it to turn and look at me and start communicating telepathically with me, because I was like, you are conscious, you are me and I am you, and the walls are me and the floor and everything is me. What is going on? Like, it was this grand experience of expanded self in a way that I'd never imagined to even be possible. And I wanted to understand it. So I first joined a yoga studio, and then I learned
that was your first point of departure.
When you say departure, do you mean, what do you mean?
What I mean is that was your first point in now delving a little bit more into this world of, more than just the physical, but where you started experiencing yourself beyond your five senses, beyond this physical body that is a container, that is a vessel, so that's, I think that's more or less when I say your first point of departure.
Yes.
Let's get a feel for yoga.
Yeah, well, as I started looking for information to understand the experiences, the first thing I actually came across was a book called The Law of One. It's a series of books, and it's a channeled work. And I just connected with it immediately, and it explained so much of my experiences, and it seemed to explain them from beyond the point of human perception. So I was trying as much as I could to kind of strip those walls away, to keep from allowing those restrictions to kind of build up. I was trying as much as I could to keep that expanded experience. And the books were such a wonderful guiding light. And then I learned about, through a retreat or a wellness retreat that I just a one-day experience or workshop that I attended in the neighboring city, because I wanted to learn more about energy, because there were these experiences of energy flowing through my body, and this thing popped up on my Facebook, and I was like, well, I gotta go.
Can I just ask you something there? And you speak about this experiences of energy, experiences that you're feeling in your body, things that you'd never come to experience. And I mean, from this side in South Africa, a lot of people that I've come across, I mean, I myself being a traditional healer and having undergone this initiation, I'm just wondering if the symptoms were similar. I mean, a lot of people I've come across, they say, as soon as they started experiencing themselves differently, they would have bouts of headaches that they couldn't explain. They would have, certain sensations in their bodies, and it wasn't always comfortable. It wasn't always nice. Sometimes it was, uncomfortable. Is it anything close to that?
So actually, before this session, one of the things that I did in preparation was go through my notes on light body activation. And I don't know if you're familiar with light body activation, but it was one of the things that I came to learn about much later. And as I read through these 12 stages of light body activation, it's also a channeled work from channeled by Toshiro Takiren and from Archangel Ariel. And as I read through these stages, I recognize so many of my own awakening symptoms, or what some call ascension symptoms, right?
Yeah.
Depends on what perspective you're coming from. So it was just this article. I think it's in a book, and it's been kind of drawn out into an article to summarize. But this article was shining a light on all of those physical experiences, and it basically pointed me to exactly what point of activation I was at when such and such a thing was happening.
Okay.
Like eyesight suddenly improving, and like being able to see more color, and hearing getting sharper, and senses getting sharper, and chest pain in the front and the back, which I came to understand as heart opening, and
wow, in South Africa, generally, somebody undergoing initiation, it's not, we don't necessarily break it down to that extent, but be like, somebody would say, oh, amadlozi, or you feel the sharp pain on your chest, also at your back. But I like that you say no, but you can drill down to say no, this is the heart opening.
Yes. It took a while to kind of learn to navigate each of those experiences, but I guess it was the curiosity that led me to wanting to navigate them. But even the headaches, depending on where they were, associated with the third eye opening and the expansion of the pineal gland. Right? And pain in the lower belly or in the pelvic floor, connected to depending on which stage of activation, could be like a symptom of your root chakra. So I follow a lot of the yogic way of understanding energy. So I work a lot with chakras. It was the thing that was my path to awakening. It kind of guided me to a more deeper understanding. And so the pelvic floor having pain, and connecting that also with higher consciousness dropping in and now merging with the physical body, and that activation happening as DNA is activated, because the body is being flooded with more light, and the DNA is telling the cells, hey, you can now recognize light from the sun and whatever other sources as a form of energy. And the cells start to vibrate faster, because they're now having to process food as a source of energy, as well as light as a source of energy. And that's what leads to raising of vibration, or raising of frequency. And it's just so fascinating when you start diving into understanding exactly what was happening with you. I had out of body. Sorry, yes.
Whoa. Hold up. Okay. Now you go into, hey, I had out of body experiences and whatnot, And now here I am sitting, asking myself, all right, before we delve that deep, all right, I'd like for you to just give us a background, because I was also looking at, when somebody says that, then they are a Ayurveda a master or practitioner. Exactly. I mean, for our new listener, somebody that's hearing for the first time about Ayurveda, exactly what is that? I know it has its origins in India.
Yeah.
But further than that, I would love for you to just take us on a little journey about that, and so that we can get an idea of exactly what your work involves.
Okay, so my yoga studio, the studio that I connected with and I learned to be a yoga teacher through, they specialize in Ayurveda yoga. And of course, there are different kinds of yoga, and one can learn or specialize in multiple kinds. But the master that I studied under, oh, he is such a magnificent, brilliant man. What he does is firstly working with the body on different levels, right? So on the physical level, on the energetic level, and of course on the spiritual level, using foods and using other like Ayurvedic practices. One such could be like, I can't remember what it's called, but a little container to run water through your nasal passage is one cleansing technique that is used.
Yeah.
Another is like oil pulling, which is supposedly good for health all around, not just for dental and oral health. There are all these wonderful little practices that you can learn in how to kind of balance your body physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, energetically through Ayurvedic practices. My training consisted more of the physical and the mental side, so the consciousness side. But they do go deeper into the Ayurvedic side. I did decide to focus more on my metaphysics at the time, so I didn't go deeper into Ayurveda, the actual practices. But I tell you, I have adopted a few of them into my own life and my own way of kind of my own practice.
I mean, at the end of the day, you end up, applying it according to your unique self.
Oh yes. Finding what resonates with you, right? And walking that path and carrying that until it's time to move on and something else resonates. And so for me, it was metaphysics that came up. Yeah,
it really came up. But why? Metaphysics in itself, I mean, as a study, it's such an abstract, or it comes across as very abstract, and why something like that really captivated your attention or your interest or ignited your spirit?
Because there were questions that I wanted answers to and nowhere else could give them. So metaphysics was like, hey, we're drawing from all that was another thing that drew me as well into going deeper into metaphysics, was I was recognizing my journey across many practices and beliefs and philosophies, and metaphysics covered all of them, or at least the course that I engaged with. And I could recognize my experiences in Christianity. I could recognize them in shamanism. I could recognize them in Buddhism and in yoga and in philosophy, in Western philosophy. And I wanted to understand this connection between all of them. And metaphysics kind of allowed for that exploration outside of any doctrine. So I wanted the learning, but without needing to kind of take on a new religion.
Okay, now I get you. But it was more, it was more like for you a holistic approach to gaining understanding across different ideas of spirituality, whereby largely spirituality, we can say that is generally will be led through religion.
Yes. Yeah,
and
but I
you
think
did not want to be confined to any religion, but you wanted to take everything that is good that can be taken from all these ideologies
and dive to the core of all of them. Like, what's at the heart of all of them? Why do they all have such a huge impact on humanity? Because there's something going on at the heart of all of these practices and these religions and these philosophies. And I had these experiences and I could recognize them across the board, and I wanted the purity of them to remain without the human element of interference and labeling and directing that spiritual experience. Because we don't need to go into the history of Christianity.
No, we don't need to go into the politics of it.
Yes.
Like I always say, it works for someone, and for you whom it doesn't, you don't have to shoot it down. Be grateful that it's actually helping somebody else. That's my approach to this entire thing. I'm like, you know what? Yes, it doesn't mean it's gotta work for you. Maybe something else will work for you, but you have no reason and no justification to shoot it down when so many others can say, you know what, it actually was working for me. But here is something else I'd like to, just quickly get from you. As a Reiki master, and here I am, I'm not a Reiki master, I know nothing about Reiki, but it's this phrase that's been flying all over the place, that now I'm going to see my Reiki master. Oh yeah, I need to undergo Reiki. And you feel like, oh my gosh, FOMO, like everybody that's arrived is doing this thing, and I have no idea what it is. But why would I come to you for a Reiki session?
So I'll just briefly backtrack a little. With the energy that started kind of flowing through my body, and I felt drawn to start trying to kind of not control it, but direct this energy and to use it for healing purposes. And I started practicing this, and eventually I came across Reiki, and I learned that, okay, there is the system that I can learn through and develop this ability in sending and manipulating energy, right? And the benefits of it that I experienced just through my own practice, through being a Reiki master, because every time I'm in a session with somebody, I am receiving that energy too. It's flowing through my body into them. So there's just a shift that can happen depending on where the person is and what they're ready to experience. And then also from a more expanded perspective, maybe what the soul or the higher self is deciding, now is the time for this, then this experience will be ushered in. So some people experience physical healing where pain is immediately, in some people, eradicated. One example was with my mum. She had a lot of pain in her hips, and so I did a session on her, and I asked her, does she want me to do a deep clearing first, or does she want me to be really gentle and just send Reiki? Reiki is life force energy, right? It's everywhere. It's in everything.
Life force energy.
Yeah. So, or prana or chi, depending on the country, right? And I did this deep clearing on my mum with her permission. And for 2 days after that, she couldn't walk.
Oh, were you not worried? Were you not scared? Like, did I paralyze this woman?
No. She just had a lot of pain, and I understood that the release of dense energy sometimes causes pain, and this is what happens during light body activation as well, or during initiation, is that a lot of density is leaving the body quickly. And so it can cause physical ailments. And so that was why I got her permission first, because I knew that there could be physical pain before there is relief. And so for 2 days, she had so much pain in her hips, bearing in mind that I'm in Korea and she's in South Africa. So this session happened via distance healing.
I was about to ask you that. It's like you're there in South Korea and your mom is in South Africa, so that is actually possible.
Absolutely.
What did that look like? Was it over the phone, Skype
No.
call? Was it a Zoom session? Exactly. Can you just take us through that process? What did the preparation and the session look like in terms of its, the physical things that need to be there and connecting over the phone or over whatever communication medium was?
Okay, so before I come to that, I just want to finish off with my mum. After
Yeah.
that 2 days, I then sent Reiki to her, and immediately she felt the relief in her hip straight away after 2 days of that pain. So sending the Reiki 2 days later immediately lifted the symptoms, and kind of maybe restored some of the energy that was lost during
Yes.
that clearing process. So what happens during a Reiki session? I mostly do distance, also because of Corona, and
Obviously,
you don't need to connect online with the person. You can do it without even speaking to them. And most Reiki masters do distance healing that way. They'll send like a message saying, "I'm about to start," which is kind of your.
So I'll receive a message, let's say between you and I'd get a message from you and say, hey, Nell, look, I'm about to start.
Yeah, lay down, make yourself comfortable, grab a blanket. I'll let you know when it's done. That's how most sessions happen. But I really like to connect with the client, with the person that's coming into the session. I want them to see me and to know that they're taken care of, and that we get to talk about what are the main areas of concern for them. And then after that, what I will do is do some breathing just to kind of relax the body and align. And then I will have them lay down comfortably, and they can choose whether they want their camera on or not. I do this over Zoom. And then during the session, I play some like healing frequencies or something, and they can just relax. If they fall asleep, that's okay. Otherwise, they can notice any sensations in their body. They can notice any thoughts that come up that seem out of the ordinary, or any persistent thoughts that come up, any images, anything that's kind of visual, any physical sensations, any auditory things, or something that may come up for them. Sometimes nothing comes up, but that doesn't mean the energy is not working. It's still doing its thing. Yeah. And while I'm doing the session, I basically just visualize them in front of me as a miniature version.
Yeah.
And what makes that possible is quantum mechanics. That's the way that I came to understand it anyway, was that space and time are relative, right?
No, absolutely.
So, I mean, when you're kind of working with energy and you're working on the subtle body, space and time are irrelevant. You can send energy into the future, into the past. It doesn't matter where I am.
Sideways, parallels.
Exactly. And the person on the other end usually experiences something. So the more I was practicing it, the more amazed I was that, heck, this works. I want to believe in it, but I mean, people are telling me things and I'm experiencing things on my end, and our experiences are aligning. Heck, this works.
And what is that like when you realize that, look, I've just done healing work, right? And somebody is basically giving me the feedback that I'm actually witnessing from my end.
It is, of course, validating, not just to my ability to do my job, but to the fact that there is something more. That there is something more that we will probably never understand with our limitations, the way that they are. And I mean, in order maybe to have some understanding, consciousness would need to be expanded to the point of being able to hold such a concept or such an idea of what's happening physically and on an energetic level. It feels amazing to hear what they are experiencing at the end of the session.
Look, even it's such a great validation, because you see, one of the most difficult things about this field is that it generally is very few things that you can point to or observe with your own eyes or as per our senses that we would normally use to quantify whatever it is that one is doing. So truly, the feedback goes that extra mile in helping you gain more confidence in what it is that you are doing, right?
Oh, yeah.
So now here's my question. Does one always go into, let's say, you become a Reiki master? Can one do it for their own purposes? I don't really want to go and sit with people and have clients that come over to me and so forth, but I want to undergo it for my own personal, tools, something to add to my toolbox that when I'm not feeling okay, this is something that I can do for myself.
Absolutely.
And can anybody do this? Because now, we hear of this thing, we hear of the calling. So it sounds almost as if this is something only certain people that are called or have this experience of saying, I've got a calling. Is it exclusive for those people, or can anybody just go and do this?
Anybody can practice Reiki. In fact, they really try to kind of push the fact that, or emphasize rather, the fact that anybody can do it. Of course, as your sensitivity to energy grows, you will notice more physical things happening. Like when I'm channeling that energy, I feel it enter through the crown of my head and flow through my body, and I can feel how strong it is or how weak it is. And I can also feel the energy in the person on the receiving end. So
Yes.
For me, I think the feeling that came with my practice was because I was already becoming sensitized to subtle energy. But for somebody who's starting out and has zero experience and zero, like maybe nothing has kind of awakened for them yet, energetically or spiritually or whatever, they too can learn to do Reiki and practice Reiki. And the more they kind of practice it, the more they will notice the shifts
I
and the
get you.
feelings. Yeah.
Journey to Samadhi. That's your book. That's the title for your book, right?
Yes.
Journey to Samadhi. And can you tell us how that book came about, and just give us a sneak preview of what the book is all about? What can I expect from that book? Because I saw that it's about to come out. You're about to publish it, if I'm not mistaken. But can you just tell us about that particular book? Because it seems like such an important part of your offering, because I take you as a healer, and the language that you're speaking is healing. So a book for me is another platform or another extension of, if I cannot get a hold of you directly, here's this book that can work as a very powerful tool. But what can I expect from that book?
So the book documents my journey to Samadhi. So Samadhi is a Sanskrit word for the deepest state of concentration. And in that deepest state of concentration is when we experience oneness or connectedness with all, with source, with everything in creation, right? And how the book came about was you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation about feeling like you need to express through whatever channels, through whatever media. And I never shared anything personal online before my awakening. If I would post a picture, which wasn't that often, I would not even put a caption, or the caption would be very basic and not hint into anything to do with me or my life. So I was really afraid of judgment. I was really terrified of...
Aren't we all, though?
Yeah, it was paralyzing. And so going through that awakening kind of unhinged the shackles of judgment, and learning to live in a state of non-judgment for myself extended out into everything else. So the book was me expressing the journey on these different platforms, as well as in my diary and in notebooks and on my notes on my phone. I would just, if there was an insight or something suddenly came to my mind that was surprising or relevant or healing or something, I would make a note of it anyway. And it felt like I needed to bring all of these things together. And so that was how the book began. I wasn't going to publish it. It was just for me to kind of have this little packaged thing of all these beautiful little experiences and insights that were happening. So the book is basically just the journey from about 7 years before my depression set in. I touch on how I started to kind of open up to things like quantum mechanics, explaining things like spirituality, though I wasn't really into the spiritual side of things, but I loved that there was this connection between the seen and the unseen, and between our ability to explain it. And so that kind of got me really interested in society and how we live according to our cultural conditioning, and breaking away those boundaries and allowing the authentic self to come through and express the way that it wanted to, whatever way that was. And so eventually the book was like I put it together in about 3 months, and a lot of it felt channeled in the sense that I would sit down and it would just flow right through me. But it's taken about just under 2 years of editing time, because I've been on and off, and it's been such a big project, and trying to get it right and to have the right tone. And, sometimes that spiritual ego comes to the surface and wants to have a big voice. So trying to work through the book and find where's the spiritual ego and how can we gently usher it out.
Look, here's something that is very, very important to acknowledge right now, is that it's not easy to write a book. Personally, for me and a lot of people that I've come across, they have a lot of great ideas and they think about it until they get in paralysis. So number one, I'm just acknowledging the work that you've put into finally, being at a point where you are now about to release your book. So congratulations on that. Thank you. I'm definitely will be buying a copy. I'm definitely buying a copy, because the worst thing that you can do is, hey, I know you, so therefore, may I please have no, please, let's do the right thing. Support the entrepreneur, support the somebody's passion, so that they can give more of it unto the world. So I will definitely be buying myself one of your copies. So I just wanted to ask you something, right? Here's what has been happening to me of recently. And, when I was looking at having you so that we could discuss conscious eating, one of the things that I've been going through of recent times is that now all of a sudden I don't want certain foods. I only want certain foods. I seem to be gravitating towards a particular diet that I would otherwise not even look at.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden I'm drinking more water than I used to drink. I am, I'm going for more fruits. I'm going for more veggies. But this is happening automatically. And yes, the idea of eating right has always been there, that yes, you need to eat right. You need to do that. And I was like, that is not tasty. I don't like veggies. I don't like apples. Imagine breakfast, me putting together these fruits and blending them. ugh, I'm so not going to do that. But something that has been happening of recently for me is that all of a sudden I'm just gravitating towards these foods, and the things that I used to like, I'm not liking them as much as I used to. And yes, I'm appreciating it, but I thought that it would be such a difficult thing. But all of a sudden it's like it's happening automatically. And I guess why you picked my interest around conscious eating was like, when I started, undergoing this, I was also worried. What is happening with me? I'm not eating the things I used to enjoy. I mean, it's very un-African, un-South African on Heritage Day to not eat braai, and I couldn't be bothered. You understand what I'm saying? So, have you had the same experience, or how did you start exploring the whole idea of conscious eating for you?
So I had a friend who is very mindful about what they consume, and they
Yeah.
first introduced me to thinking about what I eat, because I think we
I
both
guess you got to
go
think
around
about
with
it.
you just consume things. It's like, okay, there's a donut on the counter. It's standing there waiting for somebody to consume it. Let's put it in my mouth and swallow it down into my belly and then carry on like you never had the donut. I mean, like, so he awakened in me the curiosity to, or the interest to start thinking a little bit more about what I eat. Now, it was really difficult because, I mean, at that time, I was very much eating all the things that I would eat at home as a young adult or as a teenager, without consideration for what you're putting into your body. And then I decided to do a course in. I met somebody, a friend, also from South Africa, who healed her cancer with food and Reiki and meditation, mindfulness practices. I know, she's incredible. And she started to kind of awaken more of that kind of awareness of food and what we consume. So I was already mindful of what I consume mentally, emotionally, what's around me, because I was doing all these meditative practices in awareness, right? But my food was it hadn't yet caught up with where my mind was. So it's now in the process of catching up. So at the beginning of the year, I decided to do a course in whole raw food eating, or raw whole food eating.
Okay, it doesn't sound appetizing. Like, I'll be honest with you. For somebody that's always eaten like oily foods and whatnot, look, my body is I'm starting to, reject oils in my food. I'm not having as much oil. Like, no, it's not as tasty as I used to enjoy it. But whole raw foods, that's the kind of stuff that would make me not want to actually consider this conscious eating.
Well, honestly, I don't think conscious eating has to have anything to do with what diet you're eating. I think it's just the mindfulness behind what you're eating. The same way you're mindful about what you watch, about who you spend your time with, about what podcasts you listen to, right? About whose opinions you allow into your view of reality, right? I think it's the same way that you don't have to go all the way to raw food in order to eat consciously. Conscious just means awareness, right? So am I aware of what I'm consuming? Am I aware of why I'm consuming it? Am I eating for the sake of putting something in my mouth, or am I eating because this is something that my body would love for me to do right now, and I know that there is a wonderful experience waiting to happen, whether that experience is from a piece of chocolate cake or the experience is from a bowl of zucchini noodles, raw food noodles. So I think the more aware we are and the more mindful and conscious we are about what our food is and what we consume as a whole, the more that shift will gradually happen.
No, I see what you mean. So it's like, being more mindful about what goes into your mouth.
Yes. Yes. So that led to me kind of making a few adjustments to my diet out of interest, and also because of the energetic qualities of food. That
Yes.
now is my main focus, is spiritually and energetically. I want to drop as much density as I can, because the more density I drop, the more my frequency raises. The more my frequency raises, the easier it is for me to connect with source, the easier it is for me to peek into multi-dimensional realities. And that is really what I want. I want that expanded view. So food helps me to do that.
So basically, it takes us back to that old adage that you are what you eat.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, isn't it like every 7 years you've completely shed, every cell in your body has become something new, I can't get the word.
Regenerated or...
Regenerated, right? That every
Yeah.
7 years you're a new body. So what do you want that body to look like in 7 years' time? What do you want it to be made of? Same as your mind.
I mean, one of my biggest struggles, ever since undergoing my own process, and I understand that it's a lifelong process, right? So every day you're just growing, every day you're just serving people better, every day you're serving yourself better. And I've recently gone back to gym, so working out, and I don't know why it was important for me to do that, but all of a sudden I felt like I needed something that could clear my mind and energize me. And I remember my high school days when I used to work out so much in athletics and so forth. And ever since I've started doing this, it's been about now is my 3rd week or 4th week, right? And all of a sudden, the colors are a lot brighter. All right. And a lot of my spiritual work after doing it, I would be so tired. A client would come and, help the client however way that I'm helping them. But after a session with them, I'm so drained, I cannot carry on. So I figured maybe exercise will help and so forth. And, now I see that now after exercise, because one of the things I was diagnosed with, I was diagnosed with one of those conditions whereby if I don't eat regularly, and if I do eat, I have like one whole big meal for the day and I'm done. And this doctor was saying to me, the way in which you are eating, you're going to develop something so severe, something that along the lines of gastrointestinal issues that I was going to have, and I was really worried about that, but I could never jump onto eating right until I started going back to exercising. And now I can do more sessions in a day, more spiritual sessions with clients who need healing, who need assistance, so forth. So I'm just bringing that in to see, did you also go through something like that? What does your experience look like? Because now you're saying you just wanted to lower your density levels, because when you lower your density levels, you have a more deeper and meaningful energetical experience. And I just want to get from you, how has your journey affected every aspect of your life, from social to the work that you do, and how your lifestyle is like today compared to 7 years ago?
So there's a lot of questions in there.
Pick one.
Yes.
Pick one.
So socially, I'm not that social these days. I was very social for all the years leading up to my awakening, but I realized that my social life was more of a kind of mask, kind of hiding from myself through distractions, right? And now, because of the drastic shifts that I've made in my diet, or that I'm still transitioning into, it's like, where do you go eat? I went for lunch the other day with a colleague, and she was like, well, where do you want to go? And I'm like, oh, now how do I pick a place that's like not going to make me kind of break my goal, and at the same time give her the experience that she's hoping for. Needless to say, I ended up having Thai food. It was delicious, but I got to tell you, at the end of that, towards the end of that meal, I just, speaking to your experience of your taste changing, I just did not feel the same connection with it that I did even 2 years ago. You know, my taste had just changed. And even I had this period of emotional turmoil that happened during this year. And I really struggled to stay balanced and centered. And there was a lot going on. And what I did was I ended up binging on cakes and chocolates and ice cream. And every day I would come home with a bag of things. And I would tell myself, I'm not going to go and get things on my way home from work. I'm going to come straight home. And then I sit and I have my dinner and then twiddle my thumbs for a couple hours. And then 11 o'clock comes and I'm like, I can't. And I take a walk to the corner store. And I come home with a bag of chocolates and 2 different kinds of chocolates, cake, a roll of Swiss roll cake, 2 ice creams, because it's buy one, get one free. So you got to take them both, and a cookie. And I would tell myself, okay, you just eat one and keep the rest for tomorrow. Then I'm like, but if I do that, then tomorrow there's still candy here. So I got to eat it all now, so tomorrow I can start afresh. And this went on for months. It was terrible. And I became really concerned about my health. And I was like, okay, Simone, do you really want to continue on down this road, or are you ready to freaking get serious about your mind? Because it all starts at the mind, your emotions, and deal with whatever's going on so that you can let go of this food experience. And so I decided to try to go more deeply into raw vegan. And now I'm kind of on the maybe playing a little around with fruitarianism. But I think I need to do a lot of detoxing before I find comfort in the fruitarian diet. I love fruit. I can eat it all day and be satisfied. No craving.
Yeah, you can blend it. You can do so many things with it. You can add yogurt to it if you wanted some of that flavor, that yogurt thing. But
it's sweet too.
So with that said, can you imagine we've actually ran out of time?
Yes.
And I said, an hour flies by so quick, but I understand it's 11 p.m. there for you, right?
12 o'clock now. Yeah.
It's 12 o'clock on the dot, right?
Yes,
It's way past your bedtime, likely.
I'll be fine. I don't have work tomorrow, so I'm all good.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you making this time to be with us and to share your journey with us and just introduce us. If somebody who was listening for the first time, it was the first time you were hearing about some of these terms that we're throwing around, Reiki, Ayurveda, Metaphysics. These are just introductions things that you can look into, but I'm sure, Simone, you'd be more than happy to help somebody that has the curiosity and the interest to start exploring, and you can give pointers in terms of how they can better have or how they can better their experience. So will you kindly just share your contacts? How can our listeners, anybody, get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. I have a website, and you can find me at simonedupreez.com. Or you can find me on Instagram at SimoneF.Dupreez. And I've got a YouTube channel as well, but you can find the link on my Instagram to my link tree, which will kind of connect you with all the other
all right.
platforms. Yeah.
Fantastic. And just before I let you go, how do we get a hold of your book, and when is it coming out?
Okay, so I'm approaching the end of what I imagine to be the last or the final rounds of editing now. And I will have pre-orders in the next 2 months, I'm hoping. I haven't set a date yet, but the moment I set a date, I will publish that on my platforms, one of my platforms. But my hope is early next year that the book will be out, maybe January or February. I feel like now I got to stick to that.
You got to stick to it. You've said it.
Yes.
You've spoken it to the universe.
Yes.
It's got to happen. But thank you so much, Simone, for joining us all the way from South Korea. We hope that we can invite you and have you back in studio with us again, to even go deeper and just peel back more layers of the subject that we were looking at today. But for your time today, I really appreciate you, and I think our listeners and our audiences also do appreciate you for making the time, Simone. Any last words that you want to give our listeners or our audiences?
Well, just thank you for the wonderful, interesting conversation. And maybe a last word. Seeing as we started on the notes of depression, I think it's a wonderful way to end. That depression could very well be the thing that kind of leads you or guides you into a deeper understanding of yourself. It doesn't have to be the worst thing in the world at the time it feels that way, but maybe taking the perspective that there is so much more beyond that depression. Your avatar, as Jim Carrey says, is trying to get your attention and say, I'm tired of playing this character. So letting go and allowing spirit to move.
Thank you so much, Simone. Ladies and gentlemen, anybody that's paying attention, thank you for joining us today. And with that, we are signing out. Adios, amigos. Love, light, and energy, man. Just give love. And with that, we bid goodbye to our 6th episode. Can you believe we're already on our 6th episode? We are and I'm loving you guys. Thank you so much for your support. It means so much.